Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Pale Thread. I am Kat Martin, and I am your host once again for this episode. Today, we're going to cover a story that has haunted me for years. And when I say this, I'm not exaggerating. The case of Mary Vincent has been with me since I heard it. When I tell you that I'm a true crime fan, I mean it. I've been into serial killers, true crime, anything of that sort since I was about 12. And this is a story that I heard, I'd say about 12, maybe even more than that, 12 years-ish. And it has stuck with me to this day as one of the worst stories I have ever heard. So together today, let's pull the thread and see where it leads us. Mary Vincent was born in 1963 in the state of Nevada. Her parents were both in the casino industry. I bet a lot of people in Nevada are. She was a great kid, bubbly, vibrant, with a bright future. She was an incredible dancer. She actually did a solo at the Miss Universe local pageant in Nevada when she was a kid. She had amazing potential. In 1978, her parents divorced, and it created something in her. She became a bit more troubled. She was very unhappy at home, wouldn't get along with her parents. And so she started running away. She would leave days, weeks at a time. She was actually reported to be dating a 26-year-old, what you would describe as a bum. He was actually arrested because he raped another teenage girl. Because mind you, at this point she's 15. So I think he was arrested for attacking a 16-year-old. So he's a winner in my eyes. When he was arrested, she went back home, tried to stay again, but she decided she was going to go visit her grandfather in California, in Corona more specifically. In the 70s, hitchhiking was still a thing. For us, I'm in my late 30s. I knew already when I was a teenager, my mom would tell me, you never hitchhike. You never grab a ride from anyone. You do not hitchhike. It's dangerous. But back then, you just went on the road, stuck your thumb out and hope it went well. Mind you, we weren't aware of the dangers as much as we are today. So she decided to run away to go see her grandfather. She made it all the way to Berkeley, California. And there she waited with a bunch of other people for a ride. She was sick of being in the streets. She had been for a couple of days. She was exhausted. She just wanted to grab a ride. A blue van came up to the point where her and her new friends were waiting for rides. She went up to the van. It was an older gentleman, reminded her of her grandfather, and he asked her where she was going. She said Corona, California, and he said, I'm going another way, but I'll take you to your destination. People around her heard the conversation and asked if they could also get a ride because they were going the same way as she was, and the man refused. Alarm bells went off in their heads, not in hers. They told her, you really should not get into that van. First of all, I don't have a good vibe. And second of all, what he's saying is that he doesn't have enough space, but he has an empty van. He could potentially bring a lot of us. She didn't listen to them. Her thought was, listen, this man is about my grandfather's age. He seems harmless. I could probably take him. And she jumped in. As they were riding, he was being very nice to her. He was sharing with her that he had a daughter as well, probably around the same age as her. So she felt more and more comfortable with him. He was being very polite. She was being very appreciative. She was just so relieved that she got a ride and she would get to her grandfather's soon. At some point, she sneezed. So his reaction to her sneezing was touching her neck, which really made her feel uncomfortable, so she pushed away. He was just saying, oh, are you okay? Let's check if you're sick. And she thought that was strange, so she moved away and started getting a bit cold towards him. Since he hadn't done anything further inappropriate, she felt comfortable again and realized that she had quite a ways to go. So she decided to doze off. She took a bit of a nap. And when she woke up, she realized that they weren't going the direction that she needed to go. They weren't going towards her grandfather's home. They were going the complete opposite way. And alarm bells started going off in her head. She started freaking out. There was a stick, a pole on the ground. She took it out and started swinging at him, saying, "We're not going the right way. Drop me off. Stop it." And he played the dumb old man, the confused old man, saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just got confused. Probably turned the wrong way. I'm so sorry." Spun back around and went onto the correct way. As I said, he was trying to connect with her, so he was chatting, and she was looking at him thinking, he's a sweet old man. He was just confused. It's fine. But then they found themselves on a very long and empty, deserted road. And it was starting to get dark out. And he decided that he was going to stop and take a bio break. So he got out of the van and went to pee. And she decided she was just gonna, get out of the van and stretch her legs a little bit. But she started feeling quite uneasy at that point. She was outside of the van and she started stretching her legs and looking around and thinking, I'm very alone right now. If anything goes wrong, I'm in trouble. So she looked down at her feet and her laces were undone on her shoes. And she thought, if anything happens, I can outrun him, but I need my shoes to be tied. So she bent down to tie her shoes. And before she was able to get back up, he put all of his strength and weight into a sledgehammer he had in his hands and slammed it onto her head. What Mary didn't know by getting into this van is that she was meeting with Lawrence Singleton, a 51-year-old man who was known to be a raging, violent alcoholic. The sledgehammer made her pass out, and when she woke up, she was in the back of his van. He had tied her up, and he proceeded to put his penis into her mouth and force her to give him oral sex. Singleton proceeded to assault Mary 6 times. She stayed conscious the entire time. So even though he was also feeding her alcohol, she believes it's alcohol. She's not 100% sure, but she said that he would force her to drink a liquid and it would make her dizzy, sleepy. And mind you, she was 15, so she didn't really know what alcohol tasted like, and she didn't really know the effect that it had on her, but that's what she think it was. He also, at some point after assaulting her, as she was still tied up, because she was tied up to the van, not to herself, he at some point just got up butt naked and decided to change locations. He drove into a field and kept assaulting her then. In an interview, she said that she was realizing that she was living the most painful thing she had ever felt and would ever feel. So she kept begging him, "Just let me go. Please release me." She was hoping he would kill her, but she would communicate with him, "Just, why are you doing this? Please just let me go. Please just let me go." She said that she remembered him repeating a couple times during the assault, "You're going to be my good little girl." And I don't know if that kind of links back to his daughter. We'll talk a bit more about that situation later on, but I don't know if it's because he's kind of linking Mary to his daughter some way. That kind of sounds like it. But yeah, he kept repeating, "You're going to be my good little girl." After he had assaulted her all night and all morning, after she repeated one last time, "Just set me free," she was still tied at this point. He went and got a hatchet, and she said that this happened very quickly. So she said one last time, "Just set me free, please just let me go." And he got the hatchet, came back, and started swinging. He swung at her arm, and she felt herself fall back. And she remembers thinking, why am I falling back if I'm tied up? And that's because he had chopped her forearm just below the elbow, so she fell to the back. And she said that she couldn't really understand what was going on. All she felt was pain and warm blood gushing out of her. He then decided that that wasn't enough. He untied her right arm, took her out of the van, brought her next to the field, and she was holding on to him because she couldn't understand what was going on. Why was he doing this? And he started hacking at her right arm. It took 3 swings this time, and I guess that Mary was holding on like really tight, because when he chopped off her arm, the nerves in her hand decided to squeeze his arm, so she fell to the back. No forearms left. She was mangled at this point. And she says that she remembers, again, the blood oozing out of her and him trying to swing the arm that was still stuck on him. because, again, probably because of the nerves and the muscles. So after he's done this, he feels, hey, I don't think that this is enough. And just in case someone finds this lady and she's not dead, or just finds this lady, there's a risk I can get caught. So I'm just going to do even worse. He pushed her off a 30-foot cliff, that cliff being the Del Puerto Canyon. He pushed her down. Again, she's still conscious at that point. He joined her down that canyon. To be honest, I think that the idea of being armless at the bottom of a 30-foot canyon and seeing him come down, I think that would be the part where I'm the most scared out of all of this story. He decides that he needs to hide her. So he hid her in a cement tunnel and left her for dead. Now, he thought that was good enough. So he climbed up the hill, got in his van, and left. Mary, who is getting sleepy and cold, wants to go to sleep. But she hears a voice in her head that says, don't fall asleep. Do not fall asleep, or else he will do this to other women. You need to make sure that he doesn't. So I don't know what power this 15-year-old kid had in her, but it is incredible. She shoved her forearms in mud so it would create a paste with her blood. When it would dry, it would prevent the blood from pouring down further, and it was also to keep the muscle inside, if that makes sense. She was able to make her way up that cliff. I don't know if she crawled. I don't know if she walked. It took her all day to get up that 30-foot ramp. Once she got up, mind you, he had driven off-road to make sure that he had, the space to do whatever he wanted to. So she was far away from any passing road. She walked very slowly. Again, it took her the rest of the day to find a passing road. Once she did, there wasn't a ton of passing cars. The first car that passed was a red convertible Corvette with a couple inside. And she was trying to get their attention. And she was saying, she said, I probably looked incredibly scary. She was naked. She was covered in blood. She didn't have any forearms, and she was trying to wave cars down. And she said in an interview, I was upset that he didn't stop. I was heartbroken, but I don't blame them for it. So she waited again. It was another convertible, a couple that were on their honeymoon, and it was a complete coincidence that they were there. They were actually lost. They didn't know where they were going. And so, mind you, it's 78, so they don't have cell phones. They don't have phones any place near, so they put her in the car, tried to help her as much as they could until they found a phone and called the emergencies. When she got to the hospital, they explained to her that she had lost 50% of her blood, and that the blood that was left in her body was now at a toxic level, which means she didn't have much time left. She was able to make such a detailed description of Singleton that they made a sketch. That sketch was put out to the media. And it was such a good description, such a detailed description, that Singleton's neighbors knew that it was him. So they called and said, the guy you're looking for is my neighbor. The attack happened on September 29th, 1978, and he was picked up on October 9th. So that was exactly 2 weeks after the attack, which means, first of all, she did a great job at describing her attacker, but also police got on it really quickly. To help with her arms, they did take a part of her leg muscles to reconstruct them. One very disturbing fact is they did find one of her arms that had landed next to the San Francisco Bridge. It was in the water, so he probably threw it in a body of water and it just made its way there. It was 100 miles away from the attack site. When Lawrence Singleton was arrested, he denied everything. He said that he had nothing to do with her attack, that he actually picked her up and two other guys, so Larry and Pedro. And he said that Mary was actually a very cheap whore, that he paid $10 to have sex with, and so did Larry and Pedro. And mind you, his name is Lawrence, and he's saying that there was another guy called Larry that attacked Mary. So he's trying to just play games with it. He's trying to confuse police, and it's not working. It's not working on anyone, Lawrence. He said that when he left Mary, he left her with the other two guys, and when he left, she was fine. They did search his home, and when they did, they found some cigarettes that belonged to Mary. They found remains of her clothing that he had tried to burn, and they also found pieces of carpet that he had ripped out of his van, probably soaked with blood. But yeah, great job keeping it in your house. When he went to court, she had to testify. She made sure that she did. She really wanted to stand up to Singleton, and she did it beautifully. The only thing is, to go to the actual bench, she had to walk by him and then by him again when she left. And this sentence has stuck with me throughout the years, and you'll understand why. When she finished testifying, she passed by him and he whispered, "If it's the last thing that I do, I will finish the job." I heard other versions of this, but because this is what I remember from 12 years ago and I've heard it again, this is what I believe he said. Thankfully, not only the police saw through his stories, but the jury did as well. So he was found guilty of all charges, which included kidnapping, mutilation of a body part, attempted murder, forcible rape, sodomy, and forced oral copulation. Do you know what he got for that? Okay, brace yourselves. Are you sitting? Can you take an Ativan? He got 14 years. At that time in California, the most you could get for rape or attempted murder was 10 years. So he got 14. But he was 51. So he's still going to be a menace to society when he leaves. He should have been killed, by the way. He should have been death penalty for this asshole. Now you may ask, who is Lawrence Singleton? There's not a lot known about him because he wasn't, when you do a case on a star or something, it's easy to find background. But for him, he's so unimportant that there's not much. He was born on July 28th, 1927 in Tampa. He had a big family. I think that was kind of typical back then. He served in Korea, and then he was a merchant marine. We know that he was married twice. The daughter that I mentioned earlier was from his first marriage. She decided a long time ago when she was a teenager that she wanted nothing to do with him. They got in an argument, he slapped her, and she never saw him again. When he got convicted, she called him to tell him that she wanted nothing to do with him ever again, and basically was renouncing to being his daughter, basically. I can't remember how you say that in English, but anyways. Not only did he only get 14 years, but he worked in a system in prison where if you work a day, you take a day off out of your sentence. That is, I believe, a good way of functioning in a prison. If you apply this to non-violent criminals, you can't apply that to rapists, to murderers, to attempted murderers. Anyways. So he got off after 8 years. And then he tried to sue Mary because he said that she lied, that he was wrongly convicted. That trial never happened, and that just gave Mary a kick in the ass to sue him. But mind you, she learned on her wedding day, because she went on to get married. She had 2 children. I'll talk a bit more about that a little later on. But she went on to get married and have kids. And on her wedding day, she learned that he was getting released early. So she was traumatized. She said that she moved so often the years later that she lost count. She never felt safe anywhere. And now on her wedding day, she's being told that her violent rapist and attacker, by the way, she never says his name. She only calls him my attacker, that he might come to get her because, mind you, he said that that would be the last thing that he does is to finish the job. But when Singleton was released from prison, everyone in the surrounding areas were adamant that they did not want him in their neighborhoods. So every time he would move somewhere, there would be manifestations. There was actually one manifestation that had 400 people say, "Hell no, get the out." There was another one where he got moved into a hotel and 125 people showed up saying, "Get that out." He ended up having to move back onto the St. Quentin prison grounds on a trailer until his probation was done, and then he could move where he wanted and people would have maybe forgotten a little bit about him. So like I told you, he tried to sue her and she was like, "How dare you?" So she sued him and won. And I think she won $2.4 million. But Singleton doesn't have any money. He had $200 in his bank account, and that's what she was allowed. So she got $200 from him. But yeah, the audacity. When he was released, it was in 97. He was 69 years old. He bounced back and forth, like I said, was pushed away from some some of the neighborhoods, some of the counties. And then he was able to find a home where apparently his neighbors didn't really know about him. And his neighbors actually, when interviewed later, said that he was just the nicest guy, super helpful all the time. And he actually tried to commit suicide. And he was trying to kill himself with, closing the garage door, starting your car. And his neighbors saw him and called 911 and saved his life. He later said that he regretted that, which I kind of understand. But basically, he was appreciated by his neighbors. And one day, he solicited the hard work of a 31-year-old woman called Roxanne Hayes. She was a street worker, a mother of 3, who was described as, yes, having some issues. She was known to put any penny that she had into her kids having food, having a home, having a roof over their heads. She had a rough life, but she was doing her best. Singleton picked Roxanne Hayes up. He lured her into his home, saying that he was going to pay her for sex. And around 6 p.m., he had a neighbor, like I said, he was pretty close to his neighbors. His neighbor came up to his house and knocked on the door. He wanted to talk to him about something. And he peeked through the window, and what he saw was Singleton, butt naked, beating the life out of the 31-year-old woman. He banged on the door. Singleton stopped beating Hayes, turned around and looked him dead in the eye and kept going. He didn't care. I don't think he cared about going back to jail. I don't think he cared if he died by, police shooting or whatnot. He didn't care. All he wanted to was kill this young woman because he's just a horrible person. By the way, before he got released from prison for good behavior, he had a psychological evaluation that said that he was an extremely dangerous man and should never be released. The program that he was doing, it's to decongest the prison system. I get it. You don't do it with violent criminals. Anyways. So the neighbor, seeing that Singleton is not stopping, calls the police. The police gets there, and instead of barging in, they knock. And Singleton comes to the door, naked, covered in blood, and the officer asks what's going on, and he said, yeah, I was cooking and I cut myself cutting some vegetables. So of course, police didn't believe them, and they walk in and they find the dead body of Roxanne Hayes. He didn't deny killing her. I think it was too obvious. He just said that it was kind of some sort of self-defense, that she tried stealing from him or whatever. And so he never denied killing Roxanne Hayes, but he just, again, put the fault on someone else. He was found guilty, but unfortunately, he passed at the age of 74 from cancer. Now, after her attack, Mary did not have an easy life. She used her pain to educate and to help out any other violent crime victims and things like that. She would go and speak in events and speak to kids. But her own life, although she, like I said, in 88, she got married. She had 2 children, which they're her pillars. The fact that she has children is amazing, but her marriage didn't last very, very long. And once she knew that Singleton was out of prison, it really rattled her. She was having a very hard time financially. Prosthetics are very expensive, so she wasn't able to really get fancy prosthetics, so she would make some from pieces of refrigerators and things like that. But she did try to do the best she could out of the life that she was dealt. She said that before the incident, she couldn't draw at all, and she taught herself how to draw and paint. And she's an amazing artist, by the way, so I can put some examples of her art. She also says that she has such violent nightmares. She's broken bones and had many injuries from just waking up from nightmares during the night. But she did start the Mary Vincent Foundation. It is still active, and the description of the foundation goes as follows. At Mary Vincent Foundation, we're building a world free of sexual violence toward children and adolescents. So you can still go and donate. I will personally donate, and I will put a link down in the description below. I think Mary Vincent is a true true warrior. I think that most of us would not have survived 5 minutes after getting even one of her injuries. I believe that she is an example that we can all base ourselves on. I also think that Lawrence Singleton is one of the most horrific people I have ever heard of. He has never taken accountability for the actions that he took on Mary Vincent. He was acting like a petulant child that was owed her body, her life, and her sanity. And I'm very, very happy that he is no longer with us. On this note, thank you again for being here with me. I hope you see me in the next video and that I get to interact with you in the comments below. Until then, stay curious, stay safe.